Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for this opportunity to be able to address this great young HR leaders conference. And my keynote today is going to be focused on one word: talent. It's a word that's going around the world, but really, do we understand what talent really is? Aren't all of our employees and potential employees talented? Let's work out what this word talent really means. There are two elements of talent. One is being an expert in your technical field, being really good at what you do technically, being competent at what you do so that you're adding value to the organization. And the other element of talent is your leadership skills. What drives you? What helps you drive other people and motivate and inspire other people? It's those interpersonal skills that we all crave for, but they're sadly lacking in many people. And the reason they're sadly lacking, whereas being an expert in our field isn't lacking, is that we don't actually practice it often enough. We're not taught how to do it. And in this keynote, I'm going to explain to you one very simple thing. We're all talented. And let me explain why. The majority of listening here know and can drive a car or ride a motorbike. They can get themselves from A to B safely and securely. How did you do that? How did you learn to drive a car or ride a motorbike? And are you doing it to the best of your abilities now? Or are you doing it, as I often frequent Pakistan, a 3-lane highway becomes 6 lanes and the person behind is about to cut you up? Are they talented? Are they showing respect for you on the road? Are you showing them respect for you on the road? Now, when we started to learn to drive, it was pretty clunky. If you use a stick shift, you had to think of other things that you'd never done before. You know, moving your left arm, your left foot on the clutch, holding the brake and the clutch together on occasions, putting the accelerator on, looking around you, seeing what's happening on the road, looking ahead, looking in the mirror, all these things that you'd never actually done before, but you learned how to do it. And it was clunky at first, very clunky in my experience, because I ended up doing that classic first starter approach in a car, the kangaroo jump, where you hop along because you haven't quite got used to the gears. And then after a while, it just becomes automatic. Not that you're driving an automatic car, but the process becomes automatic, and it moves from a conscious act to a subconscious act. Now, you might think that that is not leadership, but it is, because it's about developing yourself in a conscious arena and then moving to all of the good practice you've learned and moving it into the subconscious arena. Are there any other examples of this to prove that you are really talented? Now, when you learned to drive a car, you were probably at least 16. So that meant you had quite a lot of experience. You could talk, you could have a conversation, you could read. Many of you had done their O-levels, looking for A-levels, and maybe going on to degrees. So you were quite well developed. But let's take it back 15, 16 years to when you were a baby. You were born with a can-do attitude. Why do we know that? Well, without a can-do attitude, you would never have learned how to walk. Scientists today, neuroscientists, psychologists, know that we're all born with a positive attitude. a positive bias to life. And again, elements of our very early years prove it. We learn to walk without having much experience. We can't read a book. We can look at pages on a book and be excited by the colours. We haven't gone to university. All we do is sit on the floor, play with our toys, and the world is wonderful. When we cry, our parents feed us. When we cry, we're put to bed. And that is our life when we're babies. But what is it that made you walk? Well, it's a can-do attitude. You looked around and you thought, that looks like a great idea. I'm going to do that. Notice the language. This was your thinking when you were a baby. I'm going to do that. That's my purpose. That's my goal. I have no other goals in life. I want to walk, and I will walk. So what do you do? Well, first, you probably grip your hands because, babies don't really have any experience of walking, and that doesn't work. Because although hands might help you, they're not really helping you just by gripping your hands and going tight, In fact, the likelihood is you start to get annoyed. But you put that behind yourself because you say, well, that didn't work. I'm now going to do something else. So what do? A lot of babies tend to look for something that's going to help them. Now, that could be an adult. It could be another human being, a parent, a friend, a relation. But typically, it's actually an object. It could be a chair or a sofa. And what they do is they shuffle to the chair and sofa. And then they grab hold of the chair and they start to pull themselves up because they know they've got to get their legs upright because they can see what other people are doing. So they try to pull themselves up and it doesn't quite work. So they give it another go. But then again, it doesn't quite work. And they could be doing this for what feels like hours. It's probably a matter of minutes because once you get tired as a baby, you tend to fall asleep. Babies are really good at sleeping. But what happens when you wake up? That one thing is firmly in your mind. You still want to walk. So you go and do what you did before, having had a little bit of success, and you try that again. But this time, you move a little further away from the sofa, perhaps, and you grab the sofa and you pull yourself up. Now you've moved to a much higher level and you're almost there, but you're realizing your grip isn't that good. And actually one hand is not as strong as the other and you let go. And then you fall down and you might hurt yourself and you might cry. But that doesn't matter because your overall purpose is to walk. And eventually, after some trial and error, practice, and practice, we all, unless we've got a disability, we all learn to walk. Now, isn't that interesting? We have a can-do attitude at a very young age. And when we're in an organization, we want to promote and develop our talent, those that are experts in their field, or rising experts in their field, but also those that have got good leadership, a can-do attitude, a will to win, want the organization to succeed. But then we look around the organization and we only look at 10% because we haven't got enough training budget to develop everybody. And not everyone's talented, are they? So we get stuck in this belief that everyone on the payroll isn't talented. And there's only a few that are. And they're the few that we're going to spend time with. But let me ask you the question. When you spend time with 10% and saying you are gifted, you are talented, what is it doing to the 90% in your organization that isn't on that talent management program? You're actually saying you're not talented, you're not ready, you're not a can-do. How does that affect them? Well, it disengages them. Research has proven it time and time and time again. You have, by your actions, impacted their attitude towards you. Some people may just brush it off and say, oh, well, doesn't matter. But the majority of people will feel disenfranchised, disengaged with the organization. The one thing that we know kills an organization, disengaging your employees, your staff, even the senior executive team, actually reduces productivity and performance. So when we come back to this talent and this can-do attitude, what we want in an organization is to develop people that can think flexibly and appropriately, are emotionally competent and resilient. They're able to connect meaningfully with others and are driven with a real sense of purpose. And any young or older HR executive want the best for their organization. And in this COVID world, it's really tough. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's tougher than ever before. All the more reason that you want everyone in your organization to be engaged and pulling together, to feel wanted by the organization, for you to tell them they're talented and you're going to help them get the best out of what they're doing for the organization, but more importantly, what they're doing for themselves. We're all talented. The issue is, do we know it? Thank you for listening. Enjoy the conference.